This is not just going to be a lesson about profit first, which we are going to talk about, but this is going to be a lesson about if you are a real estate, self-employed real estate business owner and you are looking at growing a team, or you already are growing a team, this conversation on page 83 is for you. So if you're thinking about it, or if you've already done it, this conversation on page 83 is for you. And then you guys can ask us some questions around it. And because we're going to talk about, Jennifer, I'm going to get your help in discussing, after I go through this story, the owner's comp TAP. First of all, what the TAP is, TAP, right? What the TAP is and what the owner's comp TAP is. Okay, so this story on page 83 talks about the fact that his friend has a partner, and if the two of them were splitting the profit allocations or income allocations, whatever you want to call it, they both would be making over $60,000 a year. But yet this owner and his friend brought in 2 employees, okay? So they went from a company of 2, the 2 owners, to a company, actually it's a company of 5. They brought in 3 employees. Now, what blew my mind about this whole conversation was that when he actually started digging under the numbers, he said, I take roughly, when I asked Rodrigo for more details about his own pay, listen to what he said. He said, I take roughly $30,000 a year, and my partner, the second owner of the business, left to get a full-time job so that he can now take 0. And you know why they did that? Why'd they do it? Why'd they do it, Diane Vila?
Well, he didn't want to work as hard, 1, and 2, they took on 3 employees that they were paying $65,000 each.
Exactly.
And he wanted to grow the business.
And he wanted to grow the business, okay? So 1, he didn't want to work as hard. So he wanted to hire employees to do the work, right? So he took less money, hoping that by getting these employees, he could grow his business. Okay, so if any of you have ever read the E-Myth Revisited, have you read the E-Myth Revisited? All right, if you haven't read it, here's the one thing I hear. You know, you remember when I told you guys, I'm sorry, I'm like on a soapbox this morning. Remember when I told you guys about we hear all the time that there's a proverb that the Bible says that money is the root of all evil? Remember I told you that? And that's not the case. The verse is, the love of money is the root of all evil. The love of money is the root of all evil, okay? So in the E-Myth Revisited, when I ask people, oh, what'd you think about that book? If they've read it, and they're like, oh, I loved it. And then I ask them, I say, well, what's the one thing you got out of that book? You know what they tell me? Well, I've got to get myself in a situation where I can work on my business instead of working in my business. I hear that from realtors all the time. I spend so much time working on in my business, you know, that I don't have enough time to work on my business. And then I say, okay, well, what were your goals for this year? And they tell me, and I'm like, okay, well, what income is that? And they tell me, and I say, okay, well, what are your expenses? And they tell me, and I tell them, you're not financially stable enough to work on your business. You just need to keep working. You need to make more calls, get more listings. Stop it, right? Because for you to say, oh, I don't want to work this hard anymore, so I'm going to go find other agents to do the work for me. Well, guess what then happens? You start paying yourself less and your agents are making more than you are. And that doesn't feel good. Has anyone ever tried to grow a team that can relate to what I'm saying? Okay. Terry raised his hand. I know that's true. And I'm raising my hand because I've been there, right? So here's the thing. I'm telling you this because the E-Myth Revisited is a great book, but don't mistake the fact that you're always going to be working in your business. Always. Right now, if you're the only real estate agent, it may be 100%. Then when you get a director of operations or an admin, it may be more 80-20, right, Corey? You do 80% of the work, they're doing 20%, right? Then once you have more leads than you know what to do with, you bring in a buyer's agent and get leverage through them. And as your company grows, it may go from you doing 80-20 to you actually doing being the opposite. You're 20% in, you're 80% on, but you're always going to be in. And he makes the correlation here to Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos may not be involved in getting these different accounts, but do you think if there's $100 million account sitting in the conference room that Jeff Bezos doesn't make an appearance? It's $100 million. I promise you he does. So you'll always be working in your business. Don't try to put yourself to working on your business before you're working in it, because working on it just means you don't want to do the work to work in it, which in our business is what? I'm always going to wrap real estate into this. In our business, it's what? What's at the bottom of the triangle in this book? Corey says leads. Leads. It's actually leads. If you don't have leads is the only problem you have in real estate. You either have an abundance of or a lack of. If you have a lack of leads, then you need to get to work. If you've got an abundance of leads, then you can share them with other people. But at the end of the day, your only problem in the real estate business is either a lack of or too many leads. So I just take the time to do that because at the end of the day, we're always wanting to leverage things. And the reality is as a real estate agent, we have to do the work. We have to do the work. We have to build the business. We have to stay working in the business until we have an overabundance of leads and we have systems set up in which we can bring someone else into our world. Until we get there, forget about it. Forget about it. Okay. All right. So, and how does that work with Profit First? Well, the way it works with Profit First is that you are the most important employee and you are worth the most per hour. So pay yourself for it. So now what I want to do is I want to go into with Jennifer. I want her to go in and talk about this profit target allocation percentage, this profit target allocation percentage. And he goes through and he talks about how you put this allocation number together. And I don't want to bend everyone around the axle on this math. What I really want to do is I want to go to page 81, which is the owner's comp target allocation percentage. So many of you are like, well, what should I pay myself in a salary? And I think most of us will say, well, I'm going to pay myself this much because this is kind of what I need or what have you. But there is an actual allocation. There's a formula that you go through to figure that out. And what he says here on page 81 is your salary should be on par with the going rate for the work you do. In other words, the salary you would have to pay your replacement. So if you were to replace yourself right now, what would you have to pay that person? Nico?
About $130 an hour.
$130 an hour? What's $130 an hour times 40?
$5,200.
So $5,200 a week. You have to pay somebody $5,200 a week. That's about $24,000 a month. So your salary should be on par with the going rate for the work you do. In other words, the salary that you would have to pay your replacement. So I guess what I'm hearing here, Jennifer, you can tell me if I'm wrong, if you're not paying yourself $24,000 a month, then you probably shouldn't hire somebody else, right? Because you can't afford it. You got to keep doing the work yourself, right? Okay. All right. So Jennifer, help me here with the owner's comp tab. So how do you literally figure this out? And it's different for everybody, but I mean, what overall, kind of what's your thoughts around this?
Okay, so whenever you have a question, you're always going to go back to that chart on page 68, where you're going to look at the top what was your revenue for the last year? So if you made under $250,000 last year in column A, you're gonna go down to owner's comp. Yep, yep. And then you'll see you should be at 50%. So, you know, there's two different ways, like for our landscaping business, our income is more or less very steady. I realize for real estate, it's not. So I think you have to look at how you operate best. If you're just going to do 50% of each commission, because that's going to motivate you to get that next deal and close that next, you know, that next deal to get the next commission, then just give yourself that 50% off of each commission. But if you're somebody who's like, if I get that, I'm going to spend it, and then I'm going to be eating ramen noodles for the next, you know, until I get it. Maybe you want to do like Tara does and look overall, come up what your annual should be, and just give yourself that weekly instead of each commission. So some of this, you know, where they say don't get bogged down in the details, there is a lot you can do, you know, yourself, and really to hold yourself accountable. Don't do what's easiest for you, do what's best for you.
So basically, when you go into those 5 accounts, and what are the 5 accounts? You guys tell me, what are the 5 accounts? Take yourself off mute. I want to hear it. What are the 5 accounts? One is what?
Income,
Income. What's another one?
profit, owner's pay, tax, and operating expenses.
Okay. All right. So you've got your 5 accounts. So what Jennifer is saying, and yesterday she shared that graph. Did you guys grab it? Because it is an awesome graph with the percentages on it. And Jennifer, if you have a second, can you put that back in the chat box? Because we have folks on the call that weren't on yesterday.
Yes.
Okay. And I think that if you guys have that printed out, put it beside your computer, put it where you can see it all the time. What she's saying is when you move into your income account, right? It's 50%, but if you can take less because you think you might spend it, do that and reallocate it somewhere else. Is that what you're saying, Jennifer?
So your income account is where all of your money is going into. That's where.
I'm sorry, I meant owner's comp.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, owner's comp. I apologize.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. So that 50% is what's going to go to you. What that looks like for you, if it's 50% each commission, or if you just want to look at last year and pull out of that income account weekly and know that you're going to have to, you know, that's going to have to continue to be funded, but you know, whatever's going to be best for you, not necessarily easiest.
Now, Nico, you went and set up all of these accounts this week, right?
Yep.
How long did it take you to call your bank and get these accounts set up?
It took me less than 10 minutes, and I just have to go back and go to the bank. Actually, I'm going to do that today and sign off on those accounts.
Awesome. And then how are you going to go forward with allocating your money? And by the way, Jennifer put the graph in she put the graph in the chat box if you want the profit first instant assessment, and it's on page 2. If you click on it, it'll open up and you can just save it. So how are you going to allocate those funds into those accounts? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but how are you going to do it exactly by what this is saying for now?
Yep. Well, yesterday with Jennifer, and then after the coaching with you, definitely gave me a lot of clarity. So
Okay,
I have my business account where all the money goes, which is my income. Then that will become actually my operating expenses. From there, I will take 15% to my tax account, 50% to my owner's comp, and the 5% to the profit. Now I'm planning to do this every check coming in starting today. So whatever I already have in that account is going to stay there, and I already have some plans for all that. But moving forward, starting this week, I am going to, for every check, I'm going to do exactly this for every check that comes in.
And you know,
I'm
sorry, go ahead, Jennifer. No, you go.
I was gonna just mention one thing, because I think yesterday my husband was on the call too, and he understood your question yesterday, Nico, better than we did. I'm like, why didn't you say something?
Yeah, and you know what? And then
you want to make sure you don't use that income account as your operating. Like really that income account should only have money in it when you make the deposit. You want to move that into a separate operating account because you know how like you'll have checks. When you look at your bank account, some of us still write checks. It's not an accurate number of how much money you really have in there. So the income account, you're going to move that, whatever is operating, you're going to move that into the operating account. So you'll actually be able to see, once it's in the operating account, you know, that's not, that's just for your operating expenses. But if you leave your operating expenses in that income account, and then you're writing checks out of there, you really, now that's like a blurry number again, what's in your income. So you do want to move that into the operating account.
Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate that. Yeah, awesome.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for clarifying. All right, guys, here's the reason that we're doing this. And I just want to be sure that you really remember why we're doing this to begin with. It's because you want to get in the habit of paying yourself first. You want to get in the habit of paying yourself first instead of going to your account and paying all your bills and then you taking what's left over and trying to survive on it. You want to start paying yourself first. So don't forget, you've got that allocation going into your profit account, which is different than your owner's pay. And I'm saying this over and over because this book goes in a lot of details, but really I find it to be very simple. You're putting you're dividing each commission check up, if you're a real estate agent, into those 5 accounts. And then at the end of each quarter, you're moving 2 accounts over into 2 other accounts that you never touch. And what are those 2 accounts? What are your 2 untouchable accounts? Jennifer's not going to say it. I want to hear someone else say it.
Tax and
Tax
profit.
hold and profit hold.
Tax hold and profit hold. Absolutely. Absolutely. Tax hold and profit hold. Because he goes through a story here where actually he talks about his friend who's in real estate. He's actually, tax time is my favorite time. I show up in January and I've got everything together and I've got all the money I need to pay. And how about this? What's today? What's today?
Technically
Birthday.
tax day.
Technically tax day.
All right, may not for everybody, but the tax man cometh. The tax man cometh. And how many of you get the tax man cometh? And you're like, where am I going to find the money to pay this? And I wonder if I can go on a payment plan and maybe I can pay some this quarter, some next quarter, and some the quarter after that. Am I the only one who's ever been in that situation? Okay. This is designed to get you out of that stress. What if you were the person in January of next year that said, yay, tax day, I can go clear out my account where I have all that tax money saved.
Mhm.
Corey's like, no, that's never exciting, Becky. Stop it.
I'm excited to say that I am, for the first time in a long time, totally prepared.
Yay! So what changed? Corey, share. What changes did you make? Because you've been in this business for almost 20 years. What changes did you make?
Yeah, I'm using a kind of a similar system to this. It's probably even more simple, but I still write checks and I still take my checks to the bank. I bank with a small little bank, and I just 2 years ago, after I dug myself out of a huge tax problem, I just started putting 25% of every check in the account. And I don't have a checkbook for that account. I don't have a debit card for that account. It's just there. And my taxes are done and I've got money there, and I've already got the money in there from what I've made so far this year. So it's a great feeling for myself, my family. It's amazing.
Awesome. That's awesome, Corey. And you're less stressed and your family's feeling less stressed. And so really profit first, all it's doing is it's plussing that, right? It's just plussing it. You're taking what you're already doing with that tax account, and then it's just plussing it by allocating the rest of your money through 5 accounts so that you pay profit first, right? That's it.
That's it.
Just adding that one little extra spot. Okay. it's 9 o'clock. We're gonna get off the phone or get off the phone. My goodness, can you tell I'm an 80s child? Actually, I was born in the 70s. But yeah, we're gonna get off of Zoom, and next week, we're gonna be going into tomorrow. We don't meet on Friday. We're gonna be going into the next chapter, chapter 6. And chapter 6, please read it. It can be a little tough, but it's putting profit first into motion. And here's the one I'm most excited about. We're gonna get through chapter 6, putting your profit into motion, but chapter 7 is one of my favorite chapters, and it's called Destroy Your Debt. Destroy Your Debt. It's a really, really good chapter. And so if you've done nothing, congratulations to those of you who have done your accounts and are moving forward on that. And for those of you that haven't at least set up a profit account, I encourage you just think about it, get in the habit of doing it. You guys have an amazing week. Go destroy the week. Go get some listings. Go close some buyers. And we'll talk to you soon. Love you guys. Bye.